All right, Martyn, I think we're ready to get going here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Hayden Stafford, and I'm the president and CRO here at Seismic, the world's leader in field enablement. And again, I want to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar titled Unleashing the Power of Seismic. Just a quick background on me. I have a long history in technology as a sales executive, including long time at IBM, Salesforce, and Microsoft before I came here to Seismic about 16 months ago. And why did I come? I came because I was such a huge sponsor and proponent of world-class enablement as a sales leader at these other companies. I saw it as enablement as a great equalizer, hence why I was coming here. And we've all seen it, right? We've seen from earnings calls by CEOs and analyst reports and boardrooms, there's always mentions of needing to do more enablement, more development, more training. And there's so much talk about enablement and getting more sellers and partners and customer success field folks to productivity more quickly. You know, it's a classic case of doing more with the resources that you have, and productivity and efficiency is really paramount to any CEO and CRO like myself, and I'm sure on your teams, especially in today's climate. So today we plan to have a Q&A forum with Martyn and I to discuss the current state of enablement and to talk about not the selling journey, but the buyer's journey, and discuss what he is seeing in terms of customers getting the most out of their Seismic investment, or frankly, investment in any enablement solution, not just Seismic. Martyn is a great partner and friend. He's the CEO and founder of Market Partners, a fantastic partner for us here at Seismic, especially over the last year. And we turn to Market Partners for implementation support and really lean on them for thought leadership on sales transformation strategy, change management, and frankly, just go-to-market best practices. Martyn is the CEO and founder of Market Partners Incorporated, and he's the author of the best-selling book called How Customers Buy and Why They Don't. And as a special gift to all of you for joining us today, I just found this out this morning. Martyn is going to graciously offer a signed copy of this book to everyone that joins this webinar. So since 1995, I believe, Martyn and his team have been mapping the customer buying journey for their clients, and he's been doing that using those insights to then optimize and coordinate customer-facing roles, sales, all go-to-market roles, the approaches and technology to maximize productivity. As Martyn would agree, a big part of engaging in the buying journey today is that of the technology elements. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. It's certainly people and process, but technology is really the backbone that makes it work. And frankly, which is why in 2021, Market Partners joined Seismic as a strategic consulting firm and implementation partner, really our premier top consulting and information partner. So I could go on and talk about Martyn and Market Partners, who've helped us on accounts like IBM, Nuance, PayPal, Cisco, and T-Mobile. But before we get going here, Martyn, why don't we start with you and just a little bit about you and the company?
Thanks, Hayden. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Great introduction. Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey for me because I started in sales way back. I was actually selling mainframes, if you remember those things. Big ticket items. And then kind of spent 20 years in sales management, marketing. I was vice president of sales, vice president of marketing. I ended up as a CEO with 700 salespeople in my organization. And right through that, obviously, I was looking at sales process and how do we best engineer scalable, manageable, measurable sales processes. When we started Market Partners, we kind of did something that seems so obvious, and yet why don't we do it? We started talking to our customers about how they buy. Because clearly we were involved with the selling equation, but somebody else should be engaged who's buying. So we thought, well, why not talk to the buyers about how they're buying and why they're not? And that 20 years ago started this fascinating journey for me, looking at how do buyers buy. And then if you understand that, you can look at how can you optimally sell. So kind of that's where we've come from as an organization. So we always look at how do buyers buy and then optimize customer-facing processes to actually engage in the reality of what your customers are doing.
Martyn, you know, at our Shift, our customer event last year is really where I first got to know you quite well. And one thing I loved about what you and your business talks about, we say things like sales methodology, sales process. that's really not the right nomenclature, right? It's more about the customer and their journey.
That's so true. And I've seen it. In the 80s and 90s, you could take a customer through your selling process because customers had nowhere else to go. If they wanted to know anything about you, your company, your products, they had to talk to you. They had to engage with you. We used to have this expression, the selling stops when the brochure is delivered. Well, of course, that happened with the internet. The brochure was delivered. Customers are so much more informed today that they don't engage with you until they're 50, 60, 70. In fact, the last figure I heard was 83% of the way through their buying journey. So the concept of taking them through your selling process is, I'm afraid, very dated. What we've got to do is we've got to navigate and engage with them as they go through their buying journey.
Yeah. So, Martyn, just one last plug for your business. I believe you're about 20 people, but use many, many more contractors. The stats that I loved about Market Partners when I first heard about you is you've trained almost 100,000 salespeople in 44 countries in 17 different languages. Any comments about that before we get going?
I'll make the comment that 17 languages, I didn't do those personally. I only speak 3 languages. I speak English, I speak Canadian, I speak Californian. And I can assure you they're 3 different languages. But yes, over the years, we have trained between 80 and 90,000 salespeople.
That's awesome. All right. So Martyn, without further ado, let's jump in, do some Q&A between the two of us and leave time for some Q&A. So I would ask all of you on the call to please type into the chat questions. We're leaving about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for your questions. I'd say everything is fair game to an extent, but please do put in the chat questions for us. We'll definitely get to those. So the first topic is a much overused word, transformation, right? We've all heard transformation. And the big reason why we're really connecting today is to talk about transformation, be it sales transformation, digital transformation, enterprise transformation, whatever the case may be. But at the core of it is people, process, and technology, right? And for enablement, it's about making teams more efficient. So Martyn, while you and I have discussed this many times before, for the audience, I wanted to ask, when you say that Seismic is transformative, you know, coming from me, that's a little self-serving, being that I work here. But if Seismic is transformative or can be transformative, what do you mean by that? And why transform?
It's a really great question because, first of all, yes, you can use Seismic other technologies to gain efficiencies. And I was talking the other day with folk who have saved their salespeople 13 hours a week. Well, who would say no to that? Like, that's great. Terrific. So I'm all for efficiency, but you're helping people do what they do faster. But how about helping them do what they do better? And that's effectiveness. So I like to put the focus on effectiveness. Sometimes it's harder because effectiveness means you're not just speeding up what people do, you're changing what people do.
That's right.
So the focus to me is great. I'll take efficiency every day. I love it. But really effectiveness. And a number that really woke me up that I saw recently from a survey of 1,300 sales leaders around the world is that 41% of salespeople say they're using content that they do not have confidence in. Oh my word. So yes, we can speed it up so they can find content quicker. They can send content quicker. But what about effectiveness? So for me, that's the transformation. It's in the efficacy of what we do.
Yeah. And you know, something else there is, by the way, those stats are stunning, 41%. I don't know if folks on this call know, but we, Seismic, did a first-party study of over 1,000 enablement professionals and some amazing statistics teased out of it. And, you know, from the standpoint of engaging with your peers, your sponsors, your colleagues, pretty compelling stuff on the reason why to act. But, you know, I don't think enablement and transformation is just technology. It's the change management that sits behind it. So while everybody talks about their business transforming because it's like it's a big word. It's an end point or it's a destination, but it's really a journey because technology is one step. But with that journey in mind, Martyn, I think a lot of people hear the word transformation and they think big, bombastic change and they feel hesitant, right? They have fears like this is going to be a long process. Why do you believe that our software, Seismic, and Seismic users should take the opportunity to use Seismic in a more transformative way? Again, not just the technology lens, but the change management, the process lens as well.
Well, this is really key to everything we're going to be talking about here today. And we've already talked about buyers are buying differently. It's a changed world. So we can't go on doing what we have been doing in the past. Now, some people are ahead of the curve, but we're seeing the biggest disconnect ever between how people buy and how people sell. So there's a statistic that we've heard of for many years that buyers get 50%. And as I said, I've just heard 83% of the way through the journey before they even engage with the salesperson. Our research has got another statistic that I think is equally alarming, and that is that sales teams usually only engage in less than 10% of all the activities across the buying journey. Think about that. So less than 10% of everything goes on across the buying journey, salespeople are touching. So that shows a huge disconnect and also a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
We're also seeing that buying journeys go nowhere. And guess what? This is often shown in the forecast, that there's some salesperson forecasting business for next month, next quarter, and then it doesn't happen. That we see a lot. Buying journeys to nowhere. There is a buying journey, but it goes into the ditch. Quickly, 3 reasons for that. There's a lack of alignment across the organization. They're keen on something. There's a champion, but the alignment that's required never happens. The implications, they think, gosh, if we go with this, there's all these implications of what we have to do. And then thirdly, finally, what we're doing is good enough. We know this is better, but what we're doing is good enough. So I see that we've got four targets that we got to look at when we think about why change. 4 targets, 4 outcomes. Number 1, seller productivity. We've got to make sure our customer-facing teams are productive. Operational efficiency, especially in times like this, we've got to make sure we're efficient across the organization. Ramp to productivity. 3rd, speed and agility. How fast can we bring new people up? How fast can we get into new markets? How fast can we respond? So we've got to be agile and quick. And then 4thly, and to me, the most important thing, buyer engagement. How do we truly engage and connect with our buyers? So that's why I think we really don't have an option. We have to change.
Yeah. You know, you just were speaking my language right there, Martyn. It really about the outcomes that most of our clients see. And it's really in those categories you talked about. You talked about 50 to 80% as well of customers being, or prospects being through their buyer journey. You know, another thing adding to the complexity is all of us are facing it. More decision makers, more stakeholders, influencers, so many people that you have to touch with a different narrative. And it's not just about ramping new people, it's new product launches, it's new sales plays, new offerings. So as I think about that, Martyn, and I'm sure every company out here, all of you out there, whether you're in financial services, tech, pharma, whatever the case may be, people are trying to move further away from product, feature, function, right? A new product. And moving more into solutions, more holistic view with their customers. And this sales mindset that we're talking about, what you're really talking about here is the significance of that disconnect between sellers and buyers. I'm constantly coaching my team on this. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. What have you seen are the best ways to close that gap between the sales mindset, the seller journey, and the buyer mindset of value and outcomes? And is there any evidence that you can share with the teams here or salespeople on how to better engage with customers using Seismic?
Totally. The answer is easy. The answer is easy. Easy to say, not so necessarily easy to do. But let's start with something that really, I think, sets the foundation for that question. And that is that, as you know, we're always interviewing buyers. We do in-depth one-on-one interviews with buyers. We've recently interviewed about 5,000 buyers around the world. But because of COVID, we actually started asking buyers, what is it due to the pandemic? What do you want from salespeople? What is it that you would like salespeople to do for you as a result of COVID? And the number 1 answer that we got really, really surprised me. The number 1 thing, and it was clearly number 1, the answer was, don't waste my time. Yeah. Now that intrigues me, because when did buyers ever want salespeople to waste their time? Right? It's really intriguing. But COVID, like many things, has acted as a catalyst and accelerator, and time has become more important. You've probably noticed meetings have gone from 60 to 30 minutes, right? That's
even 25 minutes.
25 minutes, exactly.
Right.
Webinars have gone from 60 to 45 minutes, right? So what's behind that? I can tell you what they also told us. They said, we are fed up with salespeople walking in, maybe virtually, and doing presentations that don't apply to us or information we could get from the web. Yeah. And there it is. And I think pre-COVID, in the years before, they tolerated it because that's what happened. In the 80s and 90s, it was fasting because that's the way they got information. But I'm afraid they now are informed. We heard customer after customer say, when you're in front of me, I expect you to be informed. I expect you to tell me something that's relevant to me that I don't know or couldn't easily get. So there is the answer. Every time we interact with a customer, we've got to be informed, on point. We've got to address all those different players across the buying journey, as you said, meeting them where they are in either physical or virtual space. We're going to have far more frequent communication, interaction with our customers, thanks to technology. It's no longer the days of preparing for a sales call and then a 60 or 90-minute sales call every 2 to 3 weeks. We're now interacting with our customers multiple ways across the buying journey. And we've got to make sure, to answer your question, every one of those interactions has got to bring relevance and value to that specific person. So that, to me, is how we use Seismic. And that, to me, is how we've got to design, enable, and train our customer-facing roles. That we've got to put ourselves in the customer's place, as you said, and we've got to make sure that every interaction we have with them, whether it's on social media, email, text, whatever it is, everyone adds value to their specific situation.
Yeah, there's a term we say frequently, content with context, right? The right content for the right opportunity at the right time.
I love it.
Yeah. Taglines. I'm not a marketeer, but I can thank the marketing team for thinking about content.
Is this just theory? But we're all biased. Think about how we react with salespeople selling to us. Do they bring us value? Do they bring us relevance? And guess what? When they do, you know what happens. When they don't, you know what happens.
Martin, a lot of times I hear people talk about sales enablement. It's kind of a bogus word, sales, in front of that, because it connotes a seller, an account exec, an account manager. But the point is, I think what you're getting at here is that content with context is incredibly important for all customer facing, frankly, all employees, because they're all sellers. Every interaction.
Right the way through, and we use the word customer buying journey or life cycle. It's the entire end-to-end life cycle. It's continuous. Customers, incidentally, don't break it up into, oh, you're making me aware of your product. Oh, you're now selling to me. Oh, I'm now installing. Customers don't think that way.
Yeah, that continuum of what we call operationalizing outcomes for everybody, your pre-sales team, your sales team, your services organization, your customer success org, your partners, all aligned around the right content at the right time. So that has me thinking about what stops organizations from evolving to the approaches that you just talked about there, Martin, and what stops them from fully embracing the necessary change, right? Because look, you said time is a premium. It is for all of us. It's not just buyers. Status quo is an easy thing to fall back on. And at a time like this, that is a fool's errand, frankly. So as I mentioned in the intro, your team has tons of experience, almost 100,000 sellers you've worked with these sorts of topics that you're talking about, from different customer types, large enterprise to smaller companies, different geographies. We just heard 17 languages, geos around the world, different industries. You personally and market partners, the team, have been strategically consulting and implementing partners with us for just about 2 years, but for decades. This is your life's work. Yes. From your work with Seismic users, right? So the last couple of years, what do you see stopping organizations from evolving to and embracing these kinds of sales approaches we just talked about?
It's a fascinating question, one that we give a lot of thought to, because why aren't more people doing this? And yeah, they're biting at it, but why aren't people really grasping transformation? You said it earlier, some people are fearful this could take years and be expensive. That's not the case. And we take companies through transformation in 3 to 6 months, but it's not easy. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. So what stops people? I see 5 things, and we've discussed this in our team. The number one is lack of a burning platform. Why do we have to do this at this time? Surely what we're doing is good enough. Maybe if we can just give salespeople a little bit more time in their week, that would be great. Yes, it is great, but is it enough? So lack of a burning platform. And that takes me to the second one, which is kind of very similar in some ways, alignment. When we look across what has to happen here, this is unique in terms of the buying journey lifecycle. There's so many players that need to be aligned. We've got at least marketing, product marketing, field marketing maybe. Then we've got L&D. Then we've got the sales leadership. we've got enablement, we've got operations. All of these people have got to be aligned for things to happen. That is tough. That's tough in today's world because all those players have their own agendas, their own priorities. So alignment is really the other thing that we see. Number 3, adoption. Gosh, people are doing some great things out there. They're getting adoption, but are they getting real effective adoption? So that's the other thing we see, that yes, we've got some great things, but our customer facing roles haven't adopted it the way we would like. Integration is my 4th thing. Integration, and not just tech stack integration, but integration of the technology into the workflow, so that we're not asking people to do disruptive things. We are actually helping them where they are. Yeah. And then the 5th thing is aiming just for a quick win. And this is, well, yes, if we can get our salespeople to find content quicker, that's great. Yes, it is great, but can we go further? So I'm all for quick wins, but I like to see them in a journey towards that outcome that we want, not just getting a quick hit, but using that to move across a transformative journey. Yeah. So those are the 5 things that we see: lack of a burning platform, alignment, adoption, integration, and aiming too low, maybe aiming for a quick win.
Yeah. Martyn, just one point there. I love it. Burning platform, alignment, adoption, integration, quick wins. There's one piece on there that I want to call out that is so important. I see it over and over. You talked about integrating with other MarTech and sales tech technologies and being in the workflow of the daily tasks of a field seller or go-to-market individual. What we just launched our marketplace for all of our ISV integrations, and what stuns me is so many customers, and I can rattle them off, aren't building these natural integrations, be it into outreach or sales law from a sales effectiveness standpoint, into Salesforce, read-write capabilities into Salesforce so sellers can get the value of Seismic within Salesforce, or Adobe, right? Making that AEM connector so the seamless movement of marketing collateral into the hands of the sellers, kind of that content life cycle. I think that one it just jumps out to me, Martyn, as a really key one. Build the integrations. They're not terribly expensive, and the value for your end user is going to make their lives so much easier, which is going to drive adoption, which is one of your other points.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think, as I'm just looking at these, I wrote them down, these 5 common hurdles, they're spot on. But the question I always get asked, and I'm sure some of you are asking, so is there a formula, like a winning formula or a blueprint to make sure that those 5 hurdles are addressed?
Well, strange term, because we have what we call a blueprint for success. So it's a 3-phase.
I did not tee that up. I did not know that.
So, we take our clients through that blueprint, but let's highlight again. I'm going to go with the 5. Like 5 is a good number. I'm going to go with the 5 things that we think are key. So number 1, Simon Sinek said it. Start with the why. This is the burning platform. Start with the why are we doing this? And I like that to be an externally focused reason. I like the voice of the customer to come into this. What are our customers saying? What are our customers doing? We can also look at share price.
One quick thing on the why. It's everybody. The why that everybody is within your organization are asking, correct? It's not just enablement or ops or sales.
No, this is something that's fundamental to us as a company. That we want market share. We want to enter a new market. We're losing market share. Our profitability is coming down. Our customers are telling, and here's the big one that people never like to hear, our customers are telling us there's not much difference between us and our competition. Those are, to me, the burning platforms. And as you said, Hayden, we need alignment around that. So we've got to start with the why. Why are we doing this? And it's got to be exciting. It's got to be big. And you've got to get people on side. Second, we call it outside in. Oh gosh, every company thinks that they're now buyer-centric, customer-centric, or whatever. Right. Again, I don't know every company, but how many of them really are? You really have to understand the details of your market's buying life cycle. You've got to really understand with a great clarity what happens, who gets involved, what do they value as they go through that life cycle. Things change, which is why the old concept of a value proposition or an elevator pitch is in my mind, no longer relevant, because things change as people go through their journey. So what do they care about? What are they concerned about? Who gets involved? What role do they play? How do they make their decisions? How do they know what to buy? How do they know where to buy it? What stops them or slows them? You've got to understand that and indeed map that out. If you haven't got that on the wall, metaphorically or maybe literally, then how can you manage it? So you've got to start with the outside in perspective, the buying journey. Third, so now we've got a why and we understand how our customers buy. The third thing is enablement. Well, this is a fascinating thing because we use that word a lot, right? But I'm going to say, well, what are we trying to enable? Who are we trying to enable to do what? And when we think of that,
back to your first one, why?
Yeah, a why. So I'm going to offer this definition, which I'm passionate about. We are enabling our customer-facing roles to effectively engage in and stay engaged and positively impact the entire customer buying lifecycle. And that's so important, I'm going to repeat it. We're enabling our customer-facing roles to effectively engage in, stay engaged, and positively impact our customers' buying lifecycle. And if we don't understand that lifecycle, then how well can we do that? And you said it, Hayden, it's not about our products. It's not about our features. It's about helping the customer at each stage of their journey.
Yeah.
And it's not just about technology. Technology is, I think, the absolute necessary platform, but we've got to have the right processes, approaches, organization, skills, and knowledge to enable that to happen. Fourth, governance. Governance. We could talk about this for a while, but just we need to understand the responsibilities. Who does what and when? We have to have the right metrics. We have to have the right cadences. Governance has got to go around that. And then the fifth one, we've mentioned this a few times, change management. Again, I see many companies paying lip service to change management. We've really got to understand this is a change. And the one for me, the one that always gets me is don't think, and I hear, oh, we'll show the sales reps what's in it for them. We'll show them how their life is going to be simpler and better. People don't change because of that. If people changed to do what is better for them, I can tell you, we would all be at the gym every day. We'd get 8 hours sleep. Nobody would be drinking alcohol. Nobody would be drinking caffeine. Everybody would be eating vegetables. We know it's good for us, but we don't do it.
Yeah.
So that's change management. So those are my 5 things that I think are the success formula.
So well said, Martyn. I love it. A bit of good comedy in there as well. A couple things jumped out at me. Stay engaged. That buyer journey, right? If there's anything I ask anyone to take away from on this call, it's the buyer journey and aligning that sales process along that buyer journey, and being engaged through the sales process, but it doesn't end there. It's the service delivery, it's the service quality, and it's ongoing success around consumption and adoption. The other piece that jumped out to me is governance. We have some really great customers that are onboarding right now. I'll use their names. Nuance, the voice and AI company that Microsoft bought. We're working with you on that. They're deploying, they're taking their time. We could have slammed in a solution right away. And I was just on with my services leader asking why we're not standing up yet. It's around the governance of the process, of the design and the usage down the road. And same with ServiceNow. They purchased from us. We actually got them off of a competitor of ours. But what had failed them from the start in their prior implementation with a competitor was the lack of governance and focus around the change management that has to sit alongside that governance. And then the last thing that I liked was, I want to reinforce, is that customer buying cycle. You know, when I think about what Informatica or Genesis are doing with us, again, 2 customers, and even Goldman Sachs using us for their investment banking purposes, it's around the engagement along the entire cycle. Goldman Sachs really stands out, you know, and when they're taking a customer public, from the time they're pitching to the time that they're delivering, content is relevant and with context for them. So really good points. By the way, I just want to remind everyone, we've had 1 question in the Q&A for the end here, which is about 5 to 10 minutes away. Please ask us any questions about any of this that we've talked about or anything else. So I want to pivot a little bit. So Martyn, I think you know this. I've been on the road. Before the pandemic, I was constantly on the road. I got lazy over the last 2.5 years and didn't travel as much. But over the last month and a half, 2 months, I have been on the road. crisscrossing the country, up and down, coast to coast. Spent quite a bit of time with a partner and a customer of ours, Microsoft. Also spent some time with another customer of ours, Google, and they're a partner of ours as well. And the theme that I'm hearing, not just from the two of them, but everybody, is AI and the impact of AI. And customers asking us, we were at a Forrester event, whether it was banks or techs or telcos, what's the role of a salesperson? Is AI gonna destroy the salespeople? You know, AI and generative AI like ChatGPT is top of mind around disruption for sales. So let's take a moment and ground this conversation for a moment. What do you see as the new role for salespeople who use Seismic in the approach of engaging customers? Yeah. So it's not really an AI question per se, but it's the evolution of sales.
Yeah.
And with so much new technology like AI and generative AI, is there still a need for salespeople in your view? I certainly have a point of view, but what's your view on the need for salespeople going forward?
So Hayden, it's you're right. AI is a big topic at the moment. And I was just on vacation in Italy, and we used ChatGPT to find out what we're going to do every day. We did all our tours. We picked the restaurants by using ChatGPT. Just incredible. But then what does this mean? Because some salespeople are saying, you know, am I going to be an automatron and ChatGPT and AI can't do what I can do? I believe that for sure, some selling roles will be displaced, and we're seeing headless selling. That's not the majority of what we're talking about. I think, and I'll draw an analogy here. I happen to be a Formula One fan. I've been into Grand Prix racing since way, way back, partly having a British heritage, you know. I look at drivers. If you go back to the 1930s and 40s when Grand Prix started, right? Drivers would have a guy beside them called the riding mechanic. In fact, it was part of the rules. You had to have a riding mechanic. And the riding mechanic would watch. You'd only have 3 or 4 gauges, like oil pressure, oil temperature. The riding mechanic, while you're driving, the riding mechanic would keep their eye on the gauges. And if necessary, they would change a tire. And if necessary, they would help you push the car. So that's what being one of the best drivers in the world was like in the 1930s and 40s. Let's come forward to today. Let's look at Red Bull Racing, who are just a dominant Formula One team. For a start, there's 25 buttons on the steering wheel alone. Wow. There's an LCD screen. Behind the driver at the race, there's a pit crew of 50, of which about 20 to 25 people are dedicated during the race to monitoring what's happening in the car, the analytics, doing simulations. The driver is, they have the two-way radio, and the pits will essentially say, yep, we've simulated this, and we think if you come in 2 laps time and change to these tires, this is the best decision we can make. However, so the driver is supported by all of these folk, by all of this analytics, by all of this simulation, by all of this data, by all these people. But the driver is still the driver in the car. They are the fastest drivers, the best drivers in the world. Now, if you still want to get out and change the tire, if you want the riding mechanic beside you to help you push when the car breaks down, then you can go to the vintage races. There's still a space, right? But the fastest, best drivers in the world are now utilizing all that technology, all that teamwork to get that car around that circuit 0.2 of a second faster than anybody else. Yeah. So to me, I think that's it. I think that the role of the sales will evolve, like we've seen the role of a Formula One driver. But do we want great drivers? Absolutely, we do. But we want great drivers who can utilize all of that tech to be the best driver in the world.
You know, Martyn, I love that analogy. It paints such a I'm not an F1 fan. I'm not a NASCAR fan, but we all obviously understand what's happening there. It is a great analogy. And I will tell all of you on the call here, you know, when you think about the impact of AI, it is all customers are talking to me about, whether it was UPS last week, Nationwide, you know, could be Navan as a travel company. It could very well be Bank of America, conversations that I have with our customers. It is, what is that role that AI is going to play? And having partnerships, this is a bit of a self-serving moment, but having partnerships and being the exclusive partner to a company like Microsoft with their Viva Copilot, their sales Copilot solutions, and bringing generative AI into sales and being progressive with ways to support sellers and possibly even augment some sellers. And same being with Google. Our CEO and our head of product is tomorrow actually, with Google, talking about these solutions in the future. But one thing is clear from all of them: there will always be a role for sellers, particularly in the enterprise. Certain roles will be augmented, maybe even replaced, but there will always be a role, and you can count on companies like Seismic to be at the cutting edge. So self-serving advertisement there, Martyn, but I appreciate that analogy. It was a good one. So the last question, and then we're going to move into Q&A here. I want to talk at the beginning and throughout this conversation a couple times. We've talked about outcomes, operationalizing outcomes, and is it really worth it? For me, it's clear. The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, I'll tell everyone on the call here, we at Seismic are anchoring everything we do, from product development to marketing to go-to-market activities to the way we implement, the way we drive adoption. We're anchoring around 4 key outcomes for our customers. It's operational efficiency. So one category is operational efficiency that you see within your business. Second is seller productivity and efficiency. It was what you talked about, Martyn. Third is buyer experience. We want to improve buyer experiences. And the fourth being ramp to productivity, whether it's bringing on new sellers, bringing on new go-to-market team members, or launching new products. If you delay a couple months, that's a huge impact to your bottom line. So with all of that said, before we wrap up and move into Q&A, what outcomes, again, thinking about outcomes, have you seen from Seismic-enabled organizations who have kind of either defaulted into or followed your steps and adopted these approaches? Yeah. And lastly, so it's kind of a 2-part question. What do you think makes the change worth it when you think about those outcomes?
Great. Well, Hayden, it's always difficult to quote numbers because there's some outsiders, but I'll give you some numbers that we think are achievable by many organizations. So your results may differ, right? But we've seen onboarding time decrease. So time it takes from a new hire to be productive, decrease that time by 50%. Is that worthwhile? You better believe it is. Bigger deal sizes. We've seen deal sizes increase from 15 to 20%. Shorter sales cycles. It's not the sales cycle you're trying to shorten, incidentally, it's the buying cycle. But we've seen that come down by 20%. Forecast accuracy, which is kind of an interesting one, but that to me is really a measure of customer intimacy. We've seen forecast accuracy increase by a magnitude of 2. NPS scores increased by 20% plus. Other things we've seen in innovative healthcare, they use digital sales rooms for doing prospecting, and they were able to get a 6% conversion from just cold leads, 6% conversion. So those are the kind of numbers that I'm seeing. So is it worth it? Well, it isn't easy.
I think those numbers kind of speak to the answer itself, right?
It's not a mountain to climb. It's now, if you've never, we've gone through this many times with our clients. We can take people through a transformation in less than 6 months. So you can get there and you can start to see those results in less than 6 months. But it does take an effort. It does take energy. It does expertise and resourcing to do that. But is it worth it? I don't think it's optional. Unless you're in an industry where you've all agreed, you and your competitors, not to do this, somebody is going to do this. And I believe that today, in today's world, you differentiate far more on how you sell than what you sell. You differentiate on that customer experience. You differentiate on your customer intimacy far more than on your offering. And today, in today's world, I just don't see how companies can be effective without unleashing the power of technology to enable this to happen. So that's my kind of response, Hayden.
I love the comment. It's not optional.
I just don't think it is.
You know, and what you see, it's out there everywhere. You go type it, CEO, missed earnings call, enablement. You'll see CEOs talking about their earnings being where they were because of lack of a focus on enablement. What happens if you don't? Sellers disengage, right? Sellers miss their numbers, first of all. Then sellers disengage. When they disengage, they then quit. When they quit, you miss your numbers. So companies that are deprioritizing enablement, it's a mistake, it's a trap, it's a place to cut costs, but this is a time to be accelerating those investments so you can leapfrog your competition. I think you're so right. One thing I would offer to people on this call, obviously we can't do all of them, but something we just rolled out a couple months ago for free, and work together. We can work together with market partners. We have what's called a maturity assessment, where we will come in and help kind of analyze where you are at in your enablement journey, where you are on the curve. If you're just starting to control chaos, to wanting to use information to drive change, to driving business transformation, we'll help you map that journey to make the case for change, because it is not optional. It is not optional. So look, Martyn, I loved this conversation. It was fluid. It's all stuff I care deeply about. I think anyone who's in the business of revenue should care about these conversations. So I appreciate it. And thank you for offering, together with our marketing team, to get your book on, about the buyer journey, and making sure that you're not missing that journey into the hands of everyone with your John Hancock on it. Very much appreciate that as well. So I can tell you we very much enjoy working with you, but I think it would be good now to open up this call for Q&A. I know a few questions have come in, and Dan Loftus, who leads our partner marketing organization, will help spearhead and triage some of the questions that came in. So Dan, greetings, first of all, and over to you.
All right, great. Thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Martyn. A lot of great questions that came in. So the first one I really like to want to share with you. And the question is, you mentioned the importance of change management, and that to many companies claim to have good change management plan. So what is the difference between a good change management plan and a poor change management plan? So there are dozens of change management models. Do you have any insight into which change management models your clients have had the greatest success with, and any other specific advice you could help us with our plan?
I love it. It's such a good question, and it is so top of mind for me. In the 16 months that I've been here, the biggest surprise to me is how easy, and I say that with air quotes, how easy it is to implement our software, how quickly you can get to a solution. It's the change management portion that is everything, to augment or to go along with the software. Martyn, I'll let you take that first, because I know we use market partners for so many of the change management sides of our projects. Why don't you take that, and maybe I'll make a comment or two.
Yep, maybe this is a topic for another webinar. But two things that come to mind. First of all, what are you changing? Having a very, very clear understanding of where you are today and why, and then where you want to get to. And I said something there that's kind of really important. Where you are. So what are salespeople, and if we focus on sales, but any customer, what are they doing today and why are they doing it? So why are they doing what they're doing? To really understand the motivation, because if you don't understand not just what they're doing, what their skills are, but why, you don't know what the starting point is. You don't know how to take that machine apart or change the machine. So you've got to really understand today's world. Then you've got to really understand tomorrow's world.
Sorry to jump in, but like when you're saying understand, it's not just I want better access to content. It's why I need better access to content.
Absolutely, yes. So yeah, so let's just not shoot at content. What content are they using and why are they using that content today? What do we want them to do in the future? And then looking at what then has to change. What skills have to change? What roles have to change? What motivations have to change? Commission, maybe, how we pay people. Let's not kid ourselves. That's an important part of the whole equation. So you've got to understand how the system works today, how you'd like it to work in the future, and then what needs to change. Then obviously you need to focus on how you're going to make that change. And then to me, for those of you that are aware of the market maturation curve, change management is the same thing. You're going to get your early adopters. So the early adopters will put their hand up. They're going to be the first people that want to try something new. And great, they want to give you feedback and tell you what's good about it. That's terrific. Use those people, but don't think that they're typical of everybody else. They're less than 10%. So 1 in 10 people are early adopters. They'll put their hand up. They'll use the technology. They'll love it. They'll tell you what's good about it, but they are not typical. So if you're not familiar with market maturation, read up on that or give me a call. And then after the early adoption, you've got the early majority. How they'll adopt is a very different reason and motivation than how the late majority will adopt. And then there's the laggards, which will never adopt. So you've got to manage your way through that curve. You've got to manage your way with different approaches to each of those different audiences. Again, all based on the foundation of what you're trying to change. And do not think that people will do something because you show them it is good for them. Habits are ingrained, hardwired in the brain. Another area that you could study is the neurology or behavioral economics. Why do people do what they do? And why do people continue to do things that they know is not the best way to do it? Because it's inbuilt into our brain. So we've got to look at that. So gosh, there's a topic we'd spend a day on, but hopefully that gives you something to think about. And again, I'm available by email or LinkedIn. I'd love to talk more. Hayden.
So you got a great answer, Martyn. I'll give 4 things that I've seen as common themes. First of all, there's always the carrot and the stick. Change management can be progressed by incentives or behavior, like me as the leader of revenue at the company. If I drive certain things a certain way and reward people's behavior for doing that, that helps. I've seen other customers, in particular at many banks, that shut off access to other content and other collateral, and you can't do it. And it's a stick policy. So there's always the carrot and the stick, incentives or shutting things down. Number 2 is voice of the field, voice of the customer. Any change must be grounded in that voice, that reason. There's nothing more pure and accurate than the voice of your people and the voice of your customers to drive a change initiative. Number 3, clarity of the outcomes. If we're all aligned around the outcome, the change should kind of follow along in line with it. And then lastly, and I've seen there's a few questions about governance. You're probably going to hit that next, Dan. If it's tied to a governance structure and a governance plan that everybody understands, from the CEO to the CFO to the head of ops, the head of marketing to the head of sales, you're gonna get natural change management if you tie it to governance.
So once again, it's not just technology, huh?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You can't just switch it on.
The most successful customers, like I think about like our asset managers and our wealth management companies that are seeing great results. A lot of that was driven not by the technology was wonderful, but it was changing the behavior of the way that people were behaving. So that's change. Dan.
All right, great. Love it. Love it. I think we all agree change is inevitable and we need to embrace it. So I think you guys hit on that quite well there. I did have another question pop up. What do you see as key features of Seismic that can help salespeople engage in and manage the buying journey? And how can we use them to be more effective?
Can I go first, Martyn?
Oh, yeah, please do. But yeah,
I suppose it depends on what industry you're in and what the size of your company is. I will tell you that there's 2 that jump out to me. Number 1 is digital sales rooms, microsites. If you're not using those, or even just live send, using live send capabilities of content to your prospects or your customers, you're missing out. I'll give you one example. A very large HR people company that is a prospect of ours had a very difficult COO that I was working with. And I was trying to get the next steps going on something. And I used the DSR that I built, super simple, because I'm pretty simple, so it was quick and easy to build. But the telemetry, the team thought this person was not engaging, was not buying in. The telemetry I was getting about usage and what that individual was looking at, and then that individual who they shared it with, told me one major topic: the business case. They kept coming to the business case. They kept coming to the numbers, the ROI, and the fact that it was shared with the CFO. I knew that was a major point. They came back multiple times. They came back to that. So guess what? In my first call following that, which was about 3 or 4 weeks later, everything was around business case and case studies with business outcomes. So DSR is number 1 for me, digital sales rooms. Number 2 is integration into Salesforce. Any customer that does not have read write turned on into Salesforce is missing out on the true gem, which is predictive content, depending on where you are in the sales cycle, not only by tagging and intelligence, the AI that we use within our system, recommending a piece of content where they are in the sales cycle, but also based on peer reviews, thumbs up, thumbs down of crowdsourcing of what worked and what didn't. Those 2 elements, read write connections, goes back to the conversation we had about connectors and DSRs. How about you, Martyn?
Well, I'll again, it comes down to interacting with your customers in a value and relevant way. And yes, we're a Seismic user. I love it. And a story for me, which really resonates, is we were bidding on a piece of business to one of the 5 largest companies in the world. That for us is a big thing, because we're not a big global consulting company. So we were in there competing against the big guys. And I noticed that one of the vice presidents, because I sent our outline proposal over a DSR on a Sunday afternoon, I saw one of the vice presidents was hitting the project plan repeatedly. So I sent her an email and said, I see that you're looking at our project plan. Can I help you? She sent me back a note like minutes later, said, yeah, here's our questions. I was able to answer them. We won the business. About 2 months later, I'm sat at a meeting with people from all over the world in Houston. And the senior vice president said, we gave you the business because you demonstrated what we want to be. That to me, there it is. So I'm not going to say we always do the best thing, but using Seismic to be able to find the right content, personalize the content, and send it in a way that you can then intelligently interface. It's just, this is it. So to me, that's what it's about, delivering relevant insight right at the point, how people need it, when people need it, where people need it.
That's awesome, Martyn. I'm going to throw in one other one. I'm ashamed I didn't say this right away. I didn't say it because I'm a brand new user and I'm still building it into my daily life. That's our meetings product. We announced it 2 weeks ago. So think about where Seismic works and think about where enablement works. Before a meeting, planning for that meeting, and certainly after that meeting and the follow-up and the actions and whatnot. But there was always that period of the meeting itself. You have solutions like Gong and Chorus that satisfies the meeting. But how about the presence of content, the relevance of content, the reception of content, and the engagement around content, pages within the content? So that's your in-meeting experience with our meeting product, and the continuum of pre-meeting, during meeting, and post-meeting for Seismic. It's going to be a game changer. It's going to be huge, and it's really going to help enablers and marketeers understand what's resonating and what's not.
So Hayden, I'm going to riff on that, something that's really important to me, based on what customers told us, that the future is not a future of this idea of the sales meeting and then a sales meeting 3 weeks later. It's a continuous flow. Yes. So it's a continuous flow. You don't prepare for the meeting on your own. You prepare with the customer and all the people that are interacting with it. So content is moving backwards and forwards through a continuous flow. So yeah, I love that, Hayden.
Yeah. Yep. Continuum. Dan, do we have time for one or two more?
Yeah, one or two more, depending on the answer. But
yeah, we weren't exactly succinct, were we?
No, that's okay. That's a great question. So next question. Have you seen success implementing a new governance policy when one wasn't implemented at the time of the SE platform integration?
I have one very clear answer with the customer, but Martyn, I'll hand it to you first, because I know governance is the foundation of a successful implementation and adoption.
Yes, because this is the way most people go. The answer is yes, but to be successful, you've got to go back to you've got to have the why. You can't just put it in place. You've got to have the why are we doing this? You've got to have the alignment around that. So to me, it follows that same process of the why are we doing this, the alignment around it, getting the governance in place, integrate it into the workflow, change management.
Yeah, back to the success formula.
Yeah.
Look, the most common, we reap the benefits, we meaning Seismic, reap the benefits of failures of governance with some of our competitors. It is the largest amount of takeaways from our competitors is largely in the enterprise. And that's because there's far greater complexity in an enterprise. So therefore governance needs to be much more foundational. So in large customers like ServiceNow that I had mentioned, the governance framework that starts with the stakeholders across all three of the core pillars in enablement. That's marketing, that's ops, and that's sales. Requirements, success criteria, and outcomes for each one of them, because they're different, right? Marketing has a view of I want the analytics to know what's resonating and what's not, an attribution of content to revenue. Operations is I want to drive greater efficiency. I want to understand who's performing and who's not by what they're doing. And sales is quicker time to value, bigger deals, quicker sales cycles. Building out those requirements in the governance framework of each one of the key stakeholders, even if they're not bought in, having one of those legs of the stool, if you will, is core and critical. You will fail if you don't have this. It cannot be driven by enablement alone or marketing alone or the CRO alone. Governance starts with what you're going to get out of it across the three key stakeholders in the business. A governance plan up front. We don't do projects anymore without it. I think a lot of software companies, as they were ramping and growing, smaller companies, it's quick. Let's get the software implemented. That is not the approach Market Partners and Seismic take together. It's laying out that governance plan and that change management plan up front with key stakeholders, not just the buyer, key stakeholders. That's the way we operate together with Market Partners. All right, we have time for one more.
Yep, we do have one more question. As a seller, what are some suggestions for navigating through stakeholders with competing initiatives?
Competing initiatives.
Do you ever not?
Martyn, I'll let you go first on this as I try to think through what the
I'm assuming that means stakeholders in your customer. So how do you navigate through the journey well, I joked, but I'm serious. Is that always? I think that's always the case. And I think eyes wide open, if you map the buying journey and you understand the buying journey, you are going to find that there are multiple players involved. That whole notion of a single decision maker and call high, that's a 1980s thing. Forget that. When we talk to buying journeys, we ask people about what happened during that journey. And people say, well, many people were involved. We actually ask, who was the decision maker? We often hear, I don't know. A lot of people were involved. And yes, we always hear there's competing agendas, competing priorities. That if we're going to invest in something, anything, everybody wants to get their hands on money, resources, time. So there's always competing agendas. So you've got to walk into the buying journey. You've got to walk into, when you engage in that knowledge that you're going to have these different roles, and you will know that this is likely their motivation. And that's when we come down to that idea of meeting everybody in the buying journey where they are with relevance, insight. That is part of selling today, I believe, that we've got to know that through this buying journey, we're likely to see, and we do a lot of work in healthcare, so we're likely to see infection control get involved. We're likely to see the VAT committee get involved. And we can't kid ourselves that, oh, wow, the physician we're selling to has got so much power that they'll run this through. No, we've got to start with knowing that infection control is going to get involved and they're going to have these concerns. So let's get ahead of that curve. Let's not wait till we trip over it or until the buying journey stops because of it. So I think we've got to engage in the knowledge of where all those stakeholders are, what their likely agendas are, and then we've got to meet every one of those with value and insight. Again, not one glossy value proposition or not one piece of content that goes out describing how great our product is. We've got to manage each one of those stakeholders and each one of their individual concerns on a personalized way, in a personalized basis.
The key theme that I hear there, Martyn, is usually, look, there will be bias. There will always be bias, and it's hard to break bias. But usually stakeholder differences exist around different requirements. Personas that are buying. A marketing individual may have a different point of view from an enablement professional. So I put this on our sales teams, your sales teams, to be sure. I refer to this as selling to all rooms of the house, meaning you sell to one, you go to one room, you don't put a toilet and a sink in the living room, right? It's a very different narrative, a different business case, a different outcome, and aligning to what their persona requires. A sales leader is different from a marketing leader. But
my thing would be, don't let them work that out. Enable the salespeople to know which is the bathroom, and that's where you put the sink.
That's right.
So don't let every seller go work this out. Map the buying journey. Know who those stakeholders are. Know who those personas are.
Know what's critical to them.
Enable the sales force with the training, the processes, the content to handle all of that.
That's right. That's right. Look, I know we're out of time. We're at the end of the call here. The last things I would have said on that is build a mutual action plan. I'm big on maps with your customer so that you're all aligned on the mutual outcome, and anchor everything on the value prop based on the persona. Look, I want to thank you, first of all, Martyn, for spending an hour with us here today. You really are a great partner and a great person. Your company are great partners. We actually are probably building an even more foundational, substantive relationship with you with some stuff we're doing in our larger global strategic accounts. But I want to thank all of you for joining and coming and listening to us on this Wednesday, to be enlightened by lots of experience here and being a part of this webinar. So thank you, Dan, for organizing. Thank you, all of you, and have a wonderful day. Be sure to look for our email, which will have a recording of this, and we'll need to get your address to send you the book from Martyn. Thank you.
Thank you.